Right. Good evening all, and welcome to this December meeting of the Barossa Assessment Panel. Take the opportunity to welcome members and staff and those who have joined us in the gallery this evening. Now, just a reminder before we get proceedings underway, we do record these meetings just to make sure we have an accurate record of proceedings. Now, as we do have a gallery with us this evening, I'll just start by introducing all the members of the panel to you. So, to my left, we have Sarah Elding and Rachel Nucky, and to my right, we have Councillor Jane Evans and Graham Burns. And my name is Jeff Parsons, and I'm the presiding member. And we are ably assisted by a number of members of Council's administration we have with us tonight. We have Aaron Curtis, our Assessment Manager, Jake, our Director of Development Environmental Services, Marie, who's assisting us with minutes tonight. A number of our planning staff are also with us, and we have a couple of members from the engineering team. We have Steve, our Principal Engineer, and Ben, who's our Senior Manager of Infrastructure, to assist us with the items we have before us this evening. So good evening to you all. Now, we have a few administrative items we just need to work through, and then we will come to our matters for consideration this evening. So, members, in terms of the attendance record, all members are present. There are no apologies. The minutes of the last meeting, now, I noticed, I think the agenda references the last meeting being held in November, but there was no meeting, was there? So I think that should be the 7th of October, if I'm not mistaken. So, members, you've received a copy of those minutes. Are there any questions in relation to the minutes? All right. Someone prepared to move that they be adopted, please? I'll take Sarah as the mover and Rachel as the seconder. Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Now, declarations of interest by members of the panel. Jane.
Thank you. Thank you through the chair. I'd just like to declare a conflict of interest with application number 25032235. My reason being, as an elected member for the Barossa Council, I was involved in the routine application approval process for the lights upgrade in this year's budget. And whilst I had no activity in the design or implementation process, I've contributed to the approval for this upgrade, which is subject of this referenced application. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jane. We'll make sure that's noted in the minutes. Any other declarations of interest, members? No. Okay. So that does bring us to our first item for consideration this evening. So this is an application by Scott Butler for truck and trailer parking facility and a number of other elements associated with that, including security lighting towers, an acoustic earthen mound, acoustic fence, landscaping and stormwater management. This was located in the employment zone and at 37 Mopper Road South in Uriupta. Was performance assessed and given public notification. Now, Aaron, is there anything you'd like to take us through as an introduction to the item?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I just will highlight, I guess, for the benefit of members and for those that are in the gallery, there have been a few changes that have occurred to the proposal following public notification, and those amendments entail changes in relation to the lighting. So there has been a reduction in the number of lights and the height of the towers. Those lights have been reduced to 6 metres in height. There's also been some changes to the acoustic fencing that is adjacent to the property immediately south, so that fencing is now at 2 metres in height on top of the 1.5 metre high earthen mound. There's also been an amendment to the hard stand area. It's mentioned in the report that the area that is around the outside of the facility is a larger proportion is now concreted as opposed to the unsealed but finished surface. And the other change, which is outlined in the report, relates to the management of, or the essentially the it's dealt with in the report, and the acoustic assessment that's done for the application has clearly noted in the assumptions that there shall no be any refrigerated trailers or any air conditioning associated with trucks that are parked overnight at the facility. And whilst the applicant did have a desire for truck drivers to be able to stay in the prime movers in the facility overnight, because that hadn't been assessed within the acoustic report, the applicant has advised that that would be removed from the application, which, while we were writing the report, there was an inherent tension between the applicant's response and the acoustic assessment, and therefore that change has been made prior to the application being finalised for your consideration. Happy to take questions either now or later after the hearing of representations.
No, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate that. All right, members. As was suggested earlier, this application was publicly notified. We did have a number of representations that were received, and 4 representatives indicated a desire to be heard, and understand some of those are with us this evening. So just before I ask the first representative to come up, I'll just run through a few bits and pieces about how this process works. And then I'll call on the first representative. So this is really an opportunity for any representative to speak to the representation that they've submitted and to highlight any key points that you would like the panel to address. Once all representatives have addressed the panel, the applicant is given the opportunity to respond. Representatives and applicants have 5 minutes within which to address the panel. Now, I do normally keep track of time, and that's just so we can provide procedural fairness to everyone. If you get close to that mark, I'll just ask you to begin summing up. Now, the panel has copies of all the representations that were received, as well as the applicant's response. That's formed part of our agenda, which is all available on the council's website. So all the members have had an opportunity to read through all of that and digest all that information. So, as I said, this is really an opportunity for you to highlight any key points. Now, the panel may have questions of you once you've finished speaking. So when it's your turn to speak, I'll invite you to the table just in front of me here, and I'll check after your presentation if there are any questions for you. Now, often the panel has more questions of the applicant than representatives. That's simply because the applicant has detailed knowledge of the proposal, and we might need to delve down into that. Once you've spoken, there's no further opportunity to address the panel, but you are more than welcome to stay with us in the gallery and observe the decision-making process. It's all open. We only move into confidence in certain circumstances. The panel's role is not one where we need to mediate between the parties to try and find a compromise. The role that we have is one where we need to make a balanced planning judgment on the item that's before us when we assess it against the Planning and Design Code, and we really use the information that you provide as well as that provided by the staff to help us in that process. Now, if you've never done this before, it can be daunting, but there's absolutely no need for it to be. The panel is genuinely interested in what you have to say. There's some water up there, so take your time as you work through your representation. Now, the first person I had to be heard was Mr. Christopher Jones. Do we have Mr. Jones with us? Yeah, Christopher, would you like to come forward?
Well, it's always nice to go first.
So there should just be a button on the microphone there with a little person on it down the bottom. You should be able to press that and it should turn your microphone on. Yeah.
All good?
Yes.
First of all, hi, I'm Chris Jones. I actually live on Mopper Road South, 101 Mopper Road South. So I'm quite close to where the development site is currently being proposed. Just to give you a bit of background history, and I've only got 5 minutes here, when the Harnes Transport Depot was originally put in place, I was one of the few that was actually against the depot going ahead up there. For numerous reasons, was that it would affect our quality of life. Making it a freight route certainly has increased the amount of traffic that goes up our road now through all hours of the day and night, which has had an effect on our quality of life, in particular with our sleeping at night time, with trucks going down the road, applying the air brakes going down the hill, usually just in front of 99 Mopper Road South, and that will continue all the way down to the nursing home corner. I also predicted on there that it actually become a quick thoroughfare through that area, which has. Traffic has increased incredibly. I predicted also along those lines that there will be a vehicle accident on that road which caused death. That also occurred shortly after the road had only been opened of the new freight route. I did predict explosions. That hasn't occurred, thank goodness. But also predicted some flooding from the hill with the extra water going down the hill, which has occurred over the years on that side of it. So certainly our quality of life has decreased since this has all gone ahead. Sleep has been certainly been affected. Mental health has obviously to a certain degree has been affected. To overcome some of the noise issues that are already in place, we've installed roller shutters. We've also installed double glazing windows to reduce the noise. It doesn't really help. So when I saw this proposal, I'm going, here we go again, we're going to have more noise going up the street with the trucks being so close to their loading and offloading. So I noticed in all the reports, and you can read my report, which obviously you would have, the issue of the acoustic fencing and also the earth barriers with the acoustic fencing on top. The question I have here is this going to be high enough to alleviate the sound issues? Currently where we are now, and if you haven't lived on Mopper Road South, we currently hear all the noise coming down Sturt Highway. It's particularly got increased since the 80 kilometre zone coming down past McDonald's where the trucks are continually putting on air brakes. We're also hearing all the go-karts and the PA system when they're running, and that all travels down our hill, believe it or not. So the acoustic fencing, I question the hiding of this. It's also noted in the latest report I saw there that what you have done up there, or they're proposing, is that they're going to put the prime movers at the top of the hill. And the reason for that is obviously it's got to be further away from where the residents are. I can tell you now that when Hans have got their trucks idling up there, we hear that quite clearly down our street already. If you higher you go up the hill, then the higher the acoustics have got to be, because where the trucks are and they start up and go, then that noise is going to travel further down the road. And that's just a fact of how noise travels. And I still don't believe that any sort of barriering is really going to rectify any sound that's going on from that side. I also have some concerns over the water management. I know that our hill, I shouldn't say our hill, the hill that's there is like a big sponge, and when it rains there's quite a lot of runoff that comes from that hill. And although they're putting in ponds down the bottom of the hill to capture the water, then with an overflow that goes on to Mopper Road South, that's all well and good in saying that. Now, I did read your briefing on what you shouldn't say at these meetings, so I did take a few pictures on the 7th of June, for those you can see here, and you can have these afterwards. This was just a normal steady run of water coming down the hill. So from there, you can see that the water's actually gone out over a metre past the curb that goes out. And you go, that's a bit of a concern. Second picture shows where the car is located on here. That's where the property and the ponds are predicted to go now. That also shows that a majority of that water that's on that picture actually is coming from the runoff from that current location now. Last picture shows the results that happen down the roundabout. And you can see from the picture on here that I'm showing now that the roundabout comes flooded down the end of there, and that's just with normal rain. So my concerns are the water management and the runoff and the pipes for the overflow that are going to go onto Mopper Road South and how that's going to affect. I've also noted that they're talking about an extra dam, and this is all going to be gravity fed from there, so there's no pump, so it doesn't matter if there's no electricity. Then that dam, in my mind, would basically be behind my house or the next one down if you want to have gravity feed. Now, the problem with all the water that we're having there now, comes into what we already established now, and a lot of the others have already mentioned in their comments, was that stagnant water gets a smell. Very true. We spray the stagnant water so we don't get mosquitoes. It helps to a certain degree. And then we've also looked at, with the chemicals, we also get that smell now. So there's just a couple of concerns I have with the water. Air quality is obviously for us, having the site so close and the movement of trucks in and out of that new proposed area, is that we'll have the diesel fumes. I know it says in there about how dust is going to be controlled, but there will certainly be dust that's coming from that environment, which also will affect us as our roof has solar panels on the moment, and also 99% of my house is on rainwater. So now I've got to start looking at how's the quality of my rainwater going to be after this has been established as well. So they're probably the main ones that I see currently in here. But probably my last one is, I think we probably all need to ask ourselves, if you're living on Mopper Road South, would we buy a house on a freight route? Would we like to have a new establishment here that's going to cause more noise and more issues? And what happens to our value of our property? Because I can tell you now, if I had a choice of living on a freight route or not a freight route and having the industrial site there, I certainly wouldn't buy there. For obvious reasons: sound, noise, extra traffic, and probably the last one there. So if I wouldn't be comfortable living on there, who else is going to be interested in buying my house in the future? Having all that surrounded so close. As I said initially, I'm not sure why we initially put the building up there when it was going to be so close to residents, and I'm not sure why now we're proposing to put extra burden or extra stress onto us by now putting a trailer park there, which is going to cause more issues. So they're my main concerns, and the rest are in the document. I reckon I've taken 6 minutes.
Yeah, slightly over, but that's okay. It was important. You got an opportunity to have your say, so thank you, Christopher. Do we have any questions, members? Yeah, Jane.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for that excellent presentation, Chris. I just was wondering, how long have you lived in that property for?
I've been there 35 years now.
Thank you very much.
So just initially from your one there, when I was there, it was only a small, narrow road and the water just ran off the side, and obviously the water then got evaporated into there. It's also interesting to note that when the proposal first went up for the Hans building at the top there was also supposed to be a earth mound right around that whole block and behind our property, which never occurred.
Thank you
So
very
that-
much.
No worries.
Thank you, Chris.
Any other questions, members? Yeah, great.
Chris, you've no doubt seen the plans, the latest set of plans, so you understand what is now proposed as a result of consultation and the amendments made. Do you think that the changes to the plans with respect to the detention basin that's shown in blue hatch on one of the plans, the fence and the mound and the fence on top of the mound will improve the situation acoustically as well as from a stormwater drainage point of view?
Acoustically, I don't believe it's going to have much change to what's already there now. As I said, where the prime movers are going to be located at the top of the hill, if you don't have the barriers up high enough, the sound's still going to travel over that. And that's in the plans now, where it quite clearly indicates where the prime movers are, and that's directly behind where the current building is now. So it is a lot higher than what the fence is going to be at the end of the day. And the ponds, I think the water's still going to be an issue. With the water coming out, once they're full and we start getting some heavy rains, that'll all start coming out of those overflow pipes, which will then lead back to more of that again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Really appreciate it. Thank you for going first too.
Thank you.
I had Robbie Falkenberg. should just be able to press that button there, Robbie, if you can see it. Excellent.
Okay, I've made, first of all, my concerns are on behalf of my wife and myself, Robbie and Mary Falkenberg, living at 78 Mopper Road South, New Yetba. I didn't know about some of the other previous alterations that had occurred, and because I've written my letter out, you'll have to bypass some of the alterations that have been made. My first concern is dust, and also about the breakdown of quarry rubble base over time in the parking area. Now, part of that concern is the effect it may have on my grape crop, as winery personnel now inspect most vineyards for contamination and disease before committing to buying the fruit. If the crop is covered in dust, could have a serious effect on the fruit sale. Part of being a good vigneron is regular spraying and maintenance of the vines and fruit, and that depends on the weather conditions for that year as well. But I don't want to be responsible for spray drift, which the wind could carry across onto the Hahn property. Now, noise was another concern. My wife has much difficulty sleeping at nights, and if this development proceeds, I know she'll push to move to a quieter area of living. I hope not, but we'll have to await and see the outcome of this proposal. Being an interstate truck driver for many years, I'm familiar with the noise factor from heavy vehicles, hence the reason I would never park overnight in a truck stop or a truck depot to sleep due to the noise created. For example, truck motors running down and also starting and building up air, parking brakes operating, doors opening, closing, people talking, ice packs operating, fridge motors cutting in and out, reversing beepers operating. The noise indicated noted on development details don't seem to be quite accurate. I know they haven't got fridge vans there. Of course, they've probably made particulars look as good as they can for the development to proceed. The other issue is lighting. The large lights proposed for the parking area are generally pointing towards our property, so we'll have to have curtains and blind closed for light suppression during the summer nights, and that's also windows to eliminate noise. In summer, we operate evaporative air conditioning that requires windows to be open for air circulation and proper cooling through the house, but now it seems that will be no longer possible. Also, during the summer months, with the lighting in the current Hahn yard, the bird life is very active throughout the night, squawking, flying around, as they probably think it's early morning, I assume. This new development with their lighting will make it even worse. For the future, I noticed some allowances have been made for noise and light suppression for existing residents living in the Barossa council area, but I don't note any consideration has been given to our quality of lifestyle relative to dust and light suppression, possibly due to us living in a different council area, namely the Light Council. Should this development proceed, I wonder how much the property values of our property and other neighbouring residents will have been decreased. I believe the original development by Hahn Corp should never have been approved in the first place, being so close to school, residential area and nursing home. That is what industrial areas are for. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you very much, Robbie. You made your points well. Members, do you have any questions? Yes, Graham.
Only one clarification, Robbie. Your property, you're directly opposite the site, are you?
Correct.
Right. And you in the house, I can see on the plan, we're surrounded by trees at the rear. close to the bend in the road, is it? Mopper Road South? The bend?
Yes, I'm virtually dead opposite where the trucks come through from
Yeah, I think so. That one.
the,
Oh, I think I've got it. Yeah,
okay,
thank you. It's just not marked on the plans that we've got in front of us.
Yep.
You're number 78, I think.
yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Further questions, members?
Through the
Yes.
chair. Thank you, Robbie, for your presentation. How long have you lived at your address for?
Since about 1970,
Thank you.
what's that, 50 odd years?
53. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, loving wife.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for that. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you very much. Now, the next representative I had, Marianne Nelson. I think your microphone's still on there, Marianne, so you're welcome to start when you're ready. Yep.
Beautiful. All right. So, look, good evening, everyone, and I really appreciate the chance to speak on this. So my name is Marianne Nelson. I live at 99 Mopper Road South, which is the property south of where their, existing development is, with the acoustic mound running along the side of my fence there. And I want to speak about what it's like to be living where I am, because I'm not speaking from a theory, I live it, and I already feel the impacts of the existing operation. So I can already hear noise from the existing yard that drifts into my home and my backyard area. I also know when I go on walks, the floodlights down near the Harden haulage at the existing place, like Robbie said, the magpies are starting to warble at midnight, okay? The wildlife's confused, and if the birds have lost sense of day or night, there's something that's very wrong, and it's only going to become worse. When they double the amount of area that's involved, this is going to double the effects that it's going to have on the environment. I'm already living with the noise, and this is going to make it constant. People say you get used to noise. No, you don't. It's not industrial noise, not sort of sharp noises, not 24/7 noise. And they're talking of operating 24/7 for 3 months of the year. That's quarter of a year. Whilst the formal response to the public notification concerns dated on 4th of November, whilst it states in situ maintenance of PMs or trailers is not planned, how do we know this is not going to happen? It comes with the stated caveat this would only be between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Rattle guns and metal on metal maintenance sounds right on my boundary. More noises, more activity, more impact when I already hear the activity now. And I'm expect to trust that a 3 metre barrier, which has now been extended graciously by 0.5 metres, which is still in line with a truck cabin, is going to protect my home from noise. It's not going to. And anyone who says otherwise has not lived next to a truck depot. The dust is not going to be just a nuisance, but it's going to be a burden. Their solution for the parking is an area of coarse gravel. Their formal response, 4th of November, says the company will continually manage this. Will they? Doesn't change the fact that the gravel will turn into fine dust, regardless of extra gravel added when the company decides it's time, which may only end up once complaints have been made to council. This dust will blow straight onto my home. That means I'm going to have dust in my outdoor areas. Like Chris said, dust in my rainwater tank, dust my family breathes, dust settling onto my solar panels, cutting their performance and costing me money. And not to mention the vegetation that is planted on the mound along the boundary could well end up shading my solar panels anyway. Who's going to trim that? And when will they trim it? Do I have to make a series of complaints for that to happen? And also, when they're up there on that mound, they're going to be standing with their feet at the top of my fence looking in my backyard. Like, not that I'm doing nudie runs to the clothesline, but that's going to be out of the question. They get the convenience and I'm going to be getting the bills. Stormwater. My home is literally downslope. Okay, so They've discussed ways that they're going to manage the stormwater, but essentially, if things overflow, the water's not going to magically disappear. It comes downhill. And Robbie's touched on this. Here's the kicker. The stretch of Mopper Road South is in the Light Council as part and the Barossa Regional Council. So essentially, if there's overflow, flooding, road damage or drainage failure, the Light Council is going to inherit the mess that's been approved by the Barossa Council, and I'm going to be stuck in the middle of that. And that's not a good place to be. The lighting, destroying nighttime peace, nature, it's going to kill the quiet. It's going to create a glow that never switches off. There's going to be no more summer nights where I can look up and just see the stars, because I'm going to have a constant glow. But the thing that really gets to me is the magpies, hearing them warble in the middle of the night. What's going to happen down the track when that happens? And this is going to hurt my home, my security and my future. I spoke with a local real estate agent because, like Chris and Robbie said, the value of our houses is going to be impacted by this. Right now, Homburg Real Estate estimates that my home is worth in the high 700,000s, which is great. I said, what happens when there's a truck depot next door? And they said, oh, well, that really makes it difficult. I said, how so? And they said it might be a hit of anywhere up to $100,000 on my property value. Let me be blunt. That is money I have worked hard for. I've saved for and I've sacrificed for my home. $100,000 loss isn't an impact. It's a financial wound, and I'm not the only one that would be impacted by that. The community is going to pay for this as well. The Hahn Corporation doesn't absorb the fallout, the community does. Staff are going to spend thousands of hours dealing with noise, dust, lighting complaints. There's going to be added stress to local residents. Local ratepayers are going to have to pick up the slack when property values and rate revenues drop. It is a perfect example of business shifting its problems onto other people. In conclusion, this is not fair, it is not reasonable, and it is not responsible. I'm not asking you to stop industrial growth. I'm asking you to protect residents' wellbeing, financial security, and the community that has elected you. If this development goes ahead as is, my message needs to be clear. My home, my wellbeing, my financial future, and my environment are worth less than the convenience of a commercial operator. And I refuse to believe that this is what the council stands for and what this panel stands for. This proposal needs some major amendments, and these conditions must be enforceable, not optional, not advisory. They need to be enforceable because families live here and I live here. So I please ask you not to approve it in its current form without some serious amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Made your points well. Do you have questions, members? No, thank you. Just for the benefit of those in the gallery, I might just say there's some case law around this in South Australia that says that planning authorities really can't take into account the impact on property values from planning decisions. So whether that's right or wrong, that's unfortunately the system that we need to work with. So that's just something that I think representatives need to be very clear on. So just provide that for clarity. Now the final representative I had to be heard, Jason Willward. Is Jason with us? Oh, Millward, sorry, my apologies. Same thing, I think your microphone's off, so just the little button with the person on it.
This does remind me of school. All right. Good evening. My name is Jason and I'm a resident of Claby Court. I'm also speaking on behalf of my neighbours who are unable to attend or were unable to make representation today but share the same concerns. After reviewing the proposal, the applicant's responses and today's agenda, it appears that the council is inclined to grant approval. While some matters have been addressed, several significant issues remain unresolved and they cannot be simply let to be managed later. These issues include odour, dust, nighttime noise and intrusive vehicle lighting, each of which directly affects the lives and well-being of nearby residents. For a development operating around the clock, these impacts will be continual, not occasional. From my experience living in Moonta, I know that gravel surfaces generate substantially more noise under heavy vehicle movements compared to sealed surfaces. They also deteriorate quickly. This noise would increase with metal screenings, and dust mitigation in the form of water trucks only offers a temporary relief. Dust will inevitably continue to drift into neighbouring properties. Impulsive noises, such as air brakes and truck doors, are particularly disruptive at night. We can already hear these noises with the current practices, and the proposed layout places these activities closer to our home. The direction of parking faces the eastern boundary so that light has the potential to be intrusive at night. Many bedrooms in Claby Court, including some of where infants and young children sleep, directly face this parking area. The report by Resonate does not describe the type of model of trucks tested. Using newer DAF models will produce significantly favourable results compared to something like a K104B. In addition, the report only tests on the existing concrete, and it does not mention anything about testing on gravel. The absence of adequate noise barriers or properly considered screening is a major concern, especially given the proposal for operations up to 24 hours a day for 6 to 7 days a week. The current plan provides only tube stock planting along the eastern boundary with no fencing. Tube stock will not provide a meaningful reduction in dust control light screening for many years. For a development of this scale and its operation intensity, this level of mitigation is simply insufficient. Earlier this year, we experienced repeated odour incidents from the site, ranging from stagnant water smells to strong sewage-like odours. On multiple occasions, spray from the irrigation system crossed our boundary, landed on our property, and even on our persons while we were outside. These are not minor inconveniences. They significantly affect our ability to use our own yard and grow our own produce. The characteristics of the odour strongly suggest that the spray was not potable water and was more likely wastewater or water associated with trade waste. It is also important to note that while the applicant states there will be no fleet expansion, nothing in the documentation limits the volume of truck wash use. An increase in throughput, the same amount of trucks washed more regularly, will generate more wastewater, worsening an issue that has already required council intervention due to system mismanagement. This issue, as far as we are aware, remains unresolved. Our concern is not only the odour and the contamination itself, but the demonstrated history. The irrigation system was allowed to degrade to the point of becoming a public nuisance. This raises legitimate doubts about assurances of ongoing management in the future. The best predictor of future behaviour is past behaviour. For these reasons, we believe that several mitigation methods are not optional, they are necessary. Among the others raised today, we wish to see a sealed surface, such as bitumen or concrete, and it's essential to controlling noise and dust. Extending the solid, ideally concrete fence along the eastern boundary is likewise essential to providing immediate and reliable noise, light and dust mitigation. These are practical, reasonable measures that would meaningfully address the impacts on the neighbouring residents and demonstrate genuine goodwill from the applicant. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason, and apologies for your name early on. Now, members, questions? No, very clear. Thank you very much, Jason. We appreciate it. Now, that was all the representatives I had to be heard. Obviously, there are a number of other representations we have in our agenda, members, with people who didn't indicate a desire to be heard. Now, the applicant, I understand, is with us and intends to respond. I believe we have Marty Rosenzweig with us. You'll be speaking, Marty? Yep. There's probably just one other point I should make as well, just with regard to the representations that we've had. As I made the point before about property values, a number of representatives have referred to members being elected, but it's just important to note that the council assessment panel is independent of the council. We do have one council member with us, but the other members are independent and are appointed by the council itself, and we don't report to the council. We're an independent planning authority, so just so everyone has clarity around that. Now, Marty, I'm happy to hand over to you to respond to the concerns that have been raised.
Okay, thank you all, and thank you to those that have taken the time out to submit their written responses and then in person here. I'll start by saying, and Robbie in particular, who I've known for a lot of years, and I think is probably, along with Marianne, the two most potentially affected by what we are proposing. That we enjoy a relationship where over the years we've been able to talk about issues as we discussed just early tonight, in particular with ice packs on trucks. Robbie can make a phone call to us and know that I'm going to take his call and try and address the issue to hand, which he duly acknowledges. One of the key points, and Jason touched on it there, was that this is not about fleet expansion. Okay, we're not here to get bigger and better and go from a count of however many trucks and significantly multiply that. That is totally off the agenda, and I'll support that by saying the wine industry is our core business. Most of you would know the state of the wine industry at present. Okay, be it in the Barossa Valley. We're an Australia-wide transport company. It is not exactly flourishing. That is very well documented. You don't need me to tell you that. So for us, for anyone to sit here and think that we are in the business of, let's just get this through and then we're going to have a whole heap of new assets and trucks and tankers, etc., that is not the case at all. We have not bought a new tanker combination for 10 years, roughly, okay? Grapes and or wine transportation is on the decline. It is not on an upward trajectory, as most of you would know, okay? So it is most certainly not about us requiring more area for further expansion of additional trucks and or tankers within our fleet. And in addition, it does not mean that we are going to use the wash bay even more now. That is not the case. The wash bay and the workshop as they are in the existing site will continue to operate as they are. The proposed development is purely for parking. There is no washing that will be occurring up top. Workshop-wise, as it says, there is no planned maintenance. If I use the example of someone hooks onto a set of trailers that are parked up the top and they have a flat tyre, they would drive that unit down to the bottom, to the existing area where it is either to our workshop to get it repaired. If the workshop is not open, they will go into our existing wash bay where there is proper lighting to have that tyre attended to, okay? The last thing that our workshop want to do is go up to the new area to perform any maintenance. They're going to say to guys, bring the trailer down into the workshop, all right? So we have no intention whatsoever to be doing any routine maintenance up in the new development. That is, of course, if a truck cannot move and a mechanic needs to go up there and perform some sort of maintenance, okay. But by and large, that won't be happening. It will be coming down to the existing development. The reason behind you might ask then, okay, well, if there's no additional trucks or trailers, etc., why do you need the extra space? We have been struggling for room in our existing depot for quite some time. One of the parts of the operation of our depot, if you drive past, is you'll see containers stored there, export containers and or export tanks. That forms part of our business. It's generally temporary storage from when we load somewhere, and the containers may have to come in our yard to be offloaded or wait until we can deliver them down to Flinders Port. That is encroaching in our space, okay? Hence, our what we did have as parking for our tankers and our prime movers has diminished as the containers have expanded. So the proposed development up top is just that. It is purely to relocate our existing assets that are down the bottom in our current area up to the new area. Okay. Chris, you mentioned with Mopper Road and the freight route. I think we got to differentiate between the freight route and Hahn Corporation, because that freight route that gets traversed by a lot of trucks now, all day, every day, has nothing to do with Hahn Corporation for trucks going up and down there, and particularly now with New to Traders from their depot. They need to get to the Sturt Highway from where they are. So their activity along Mopper Road now is, along with others, is significant. Sorry about that. Our traffic, or the amount of noise that we make, I think, compared to the traffic that traverse along Mopper Road South, ours is minor. Ours is minor, with idling trucks or trucks doing between 10 to 15 kilometres within the depot, irrespective of where that may be, in the current or the proposed area, compared to what trucks now are coming up Mopper Road South, lights on high beam, using engine brakes. That's not a Hahn Corporation issue. That's not us. Most of the trucks, when we exit out of our depot, we turn right and head towards Alkapunda Road. We do turn left and head down Mopper Road South, but most of the time we do head towards the Sturt Highway. And in addition, and it's been touched on, the Sturt Highway traffic is significant. The noise from there, I start work at 5 o'clock every morning. It's quiet. I hop out in my car and I stand there, and the noise emanating from the Sturt Highway and or trucks then coming along Mopper Road South significantly outweighs anything that may be happening within the depot if I have a truck that may be starting work and idling out of the yard. The Sturt Highway traffic is of greater concern, and you don't even have to be living as close as all you guys do to hear that. If you can be further south within the township of Newry and still hear all the noise from the Sturt Highway. And as someone alluded to, with the new service station there, engine brakes coming down the hill or trucks taking off from the service station under load going up the hill is where a lot of the noise pollution is coming from. Okay, I believe our modern fleet of trucks that we have are some of the quietest around, and without Jason, I think you alluded to, an older model prime mover, K104B. We might have one or two in the fleet, and 98% of the rest are all late model Euro 5, what they call Euro 5 prime movers. Okay. Dust. You can see there's a significant area that is concreted. We acknowledge the area within the trailer parking being with the metal screenings. Once again, I say that the dust that would emanate from trucks driving along Mopper Road South, heading down towards the roundabout past our depot, you would probably get a lot more flying up from the side of the road into your front yard than potentially what may occur as a result of ours. I think that was about all on my behalf. The lighting on that eastern boundary, Jason, without looking at the actual knowing, I believed it was built up fairly high so that any lighting from from prime movers would not be going over into that eastern area of those the new residents. Marianne, we've built that up as much as we can. Also for your residents as well. And Robbie, we've put the trying to screen as much as possible for your place. But I do say that I would have thought that trucks in particular heading north on Mopper Road South, those lights would provide far more of an issue to you than potentially what ours do.
Thank you, Marty, for your presentation. Members, do you have questions you'd like to pose? Yes, Graham.
Just one, Marty, towards the end of your presentation, which was very well put, this parking area that will be surfaced with metal screenings, how often do you expect to have to replace, re-level, compact and bring in additional screenings to minimise this? Well, I think what I think is a legitimate concern that's been raised, because heavy vehicles turn around and screw it, it turns to dust. How often will you be dealing with that issue to ensure it doesn't occur through continual use?
To answer you, I don't know exactly, because we don't currently have that in our existing area, so I am unsure. And to be honest, from our point of view, that is probably the one issue that we would look at and think, that there is potentially a half a legitimate, cause for concern, I guess, on that dust, amongst all the other issues, noise, lighting, etc. So, but to answer your question, I'm not sure. We would have to see, or I would have to consult the engineers and see what I guess it depends on how many movements are occurring over that metal screening area, because it is just the inside area. All the outer area is all concrete. It's just the middle bit where the trailers are actually parked. So without knowing how quickly that would break up, it depends on the amount of truck movements. Can I just add one other thing, sorry? When we spoke about vintage being 3 months, once again, I'll go back to the wine industry, that it used to be a 3-month thing back in the day, that was drawn out. Now, I reckon in the Barossa itself, would be lucky to be 4 to 6 weeks of us being a 24/7 operation. Okay, so I think that is a stretch to say out to 3 months. Our vintages move into other regions around Australia: Victoria, New South Wales, Western Australia, other parts of South Australia. So the Barossa, keep in mind, is only one little small part of our business, of our vintage. Okay, thank you.
Rachel.
Is this working? Yes. I just had, just on the basis of some of the concerns raised by the representatives around odour and trade waste, can you just talk us through how you do currently manage trade waste?
Yes.
Because I couldn't really get a grasp on that in what was provided.
Which I believe, though, is a separate issue, because there is no relevance of that to the proposed development, because the trade waste has no... We are currently working, with council on the current trade waste, with treatment. We have a treatment system, aeration pond, irrigation, etc. in place currently, but that has no... because that does not form any part of this new development whatsoever, that has been set aside. And I have met with Deborah Harding on the trade waste side of it, and continue to. We're working through that now.
Okay, because I note that, yes, while it's not part of this, it was part of the former original application. So, because I think reading through some of the conditions that the EPA had on the existing application for the
For the
use of the
existing
land.
depot?
Yep.
Yep.
There was some
Yep.
conditions on there about it. So
Yep.
whilst it's not part of this application, I think the concerns are valid.
Yep.
And it's just I wanted to make sure that you were dealing with it. Yeah.
Yes, yes. As I said, Deborah Harding's been out twice.
Other questions, members? Jane?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Marty, for your presentation. With the area that's proposed to be screened for parking of trailers, this may be a just a general inquiry, but is there at all a possibility to concrete that? To just severely reduce
Yeah,
the risk of
I'm not sure about
dust
concrete,
and
but there's obviously
noise
potentially
or a
other
surface,
other options.
some surfacing that could possibly be looked at
Yeah, I guess
as a compromise,
Yeah,
I suppose.
yeah. We're
just to
obviously on a
consider.
commercial side of it. We're looking and saying, okay, what can we do here? But yeah, I understand. We've got a significant amount of concrete as there is now, but it's not to say that
It's impossible.
potentially some compromise couldn't be reached in some form.
All right, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Sarah?
Thank you, through the chair. I just have some concerns regarding the impact of the development, particularly sealing areas that are currently pervious. Was there consideration of a flood study? It is located in the evidence required flood overlay, and I notice in Gamma's report they did look at the flood mapping on Water Connect, which is incredibly outdated, by the way. Was there consideration of a flood hazard study on the site regarding the impact of the development?
Yeah, I believe, has that been put aside as a reserve matter with the stormwater side, so through Gamma, so without passing the buck, Gamma, we've gone back to Gamma now and said, okay, council have some concerns here on this stormwater side of it that weren't there originally but have been late in the piece. So I think that's why it was put aside then, for them to now investigate further.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we also have Council's engineer we can shortly pose some questions to as well, I think, that might assist in that regard also. Yeah.
Whilst Marty's still here, I wonder whether I might just ask a follow-up question, completely unrelated to what I've just been talking about and asking questions about. It's a very large site, and that part of the site that's closest to the residents on, I'll call it Atsy Parade, is vacant. Can you tell me, has the company got any plans for the future development of that part of the site?
No, not for anything development-wise, for parking or, no, absolutely not.
It's just it becomes a little bit landlocked, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't know what
Yeah.
you could do to deal with that issue.
Yeah,
but,
no.
but it's a very large parcel of land that sits on that side
Yep.
to the east. And
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a question of clarity, Marty, because we heard from one of the representatives around this, and I apologise if I missed it in the documentation, but the landscaping that's proposed around the boundary, is that all proposed as tube stock, or is there some mature planting that you're looking at as well in that regard?
Good question. I don't know what it... Because I know the type of plants, Marianne, you had some concerns from, and that was agreed to change that to evergreen or the like, whatever we were going to call it. But as to the exact nature of them, I'm not. So it says tube planting along western road boundary and internal eastern fence line, and advanced planting to the southern neighbour boundary.
Okay.
So
No, thank you.
if
I
that
think
answers your,
it does
in
provide...
part answers the question.
it does provide some clarity, and the panel might want to consider when it gets to its consideration of this item, whether it wants to request more mature planting or not. So, thank you. I think that helps. Are there any other questions, members? No, in that case, thank you, Marty. We appreciate your presentation. Now, members, there is an opportunity for you to, you're welcome to return to your seat. Thanks, Marty. There is an opportunity for you to now ask the staff any questions you would like, bearing in mind we also have Steve with us who can assist with any engineering questions. Yeah, come. Absolutely.
Hi, Steve, and thank you for your attendance. You both have just heard what I said. Queries have been raised about the stormwater management plan and its adequacy. Could you just give us a rundown as simply as you can, and I know that's not necessarily always possible, but as to whether the stormwater management plan that is proposed will be adequate to deal with what is proposed by way of stormwater runoff, detention and so forth? Noting that this stormwater management is a reserved matter, but to give us a better sense of what's proposed and a degree of comfort perhaps as to whether it can be stormwater can be dealt with adequately.
Exactly, I certainly understand the question and through the chair. The two elements to address here are firstly the flood study element, and the second is the detention arrangement and the outfall from the site. Firstly, it's certainly as a result of the information from our flood studies performed on both the North Para River and Kalimna Creek, the site is well clear of any flood inundation from those watercourses. Localised flooding is another matter again in terms of just gutter flows, and so in that area there is no underground stormwater drainage system, and so the gutter is part of this legitimate stormwater system for the water to discharge to. It would be expected at times that wide gutter flows would be present as a result of there being no underground system. That then leads into the stormwater management and the outflow from this particular site. And the conditions set by council here are quite stringent. In other words, there's normally a requirement for detention or throating of the flows from the site such that the post-development flow rates are at least equal to or less than the pre-development flow rates. Here we've gone one step further again and actually defined the outflow as being 12 litres a second or 20 litres a second for up to the 1% or 100-year outflow. Now that would be less than what is coming off the site now as a pre-development flow rate. So that'll be a tricky thing for Gamma to balance. It's possible that the area set aside for detention is not quite enough, but otherwise they've got a large site area there to include a larger area and other elements of either infiltration if they choose, with proven infiltration rates, to actually ensure that the stormwater drainage management plan that is proposed will actually function at the level of service that is required. As for the level of confidence that council has, given the space that they have, given the words that are in the Gamma report, we're confident that that can be achieved.
Can I just ask something further to that with respect to water quality? Because I'm pretty hot on that. And I think given the use of this site, water quality is especially important. I note that part of it is that you're looking at trying to achieve desired water quality levels consistent with best practice and the EPA's guideline. What in particular, like, would we be looking at minimum or going above and beyond? Like, really, we should be putting a big emphasis on this, given I think some of the issues raised by the representatives.
There's nothing to say that water quality can't be, water quality will be improved from the current exit from the site because there is no mitigation measures in place at the moment. So that is definite. And then in terms of the EPA practice, that would be inclusive of best practice as documented in Council's stormwater drainage guidelines. It's even mentioned on page 53 as a requirement of the development to demonstrate that the water quality outputs are actually achieving the level of service that is required. We've deliberately put that in there as a condition for that very reason that you've mentioned, that we need to be sure that we're achieving something here that is of quality rather than something that is just an average outcome. I'm confident that it can be achieved, especially with planting, especially with grass swales. All of those things really add to actually give you water that's, well, dare I say, not drinkable, but clear.
Thank you. Any further questions of Steve, members? This is one without notice, Steve, and I'm not sure it's your area of expertise, so see what you think. But Mopper Road South is a designated freight route, as we've heard. We also heard some concerns about, I guess, the road being used for that purpose. Does the road, I guess, comply with the requirements to make it suitable as a designated freight route?
There's a number of ways you define its adequacy on those terms. Firstly, in terms of its capacity, the pavement and those elements, yes. Its width, yes. Its turning paths, yes. For all of the vehicles up to what's level 3 PBS or PBS level 3, which is 36.5 vehicles, 36.5 metre long vehicles. There was a mention earlier on in terms of crashes on the road. In a few minutes ago, I checked on the SA viewer, and in the 5 years from 2000 to 2024, there have been no crashes in the section between Old Kapunda Road and the otherwise intersection. But there were crashes at that intersection that had been mitigated now by that roundabout at the Greenock Road, Mopper Road South, Samuel Road intersection. So those elements of safety have improved the road. That's a roundabout answer, I know, to your question, but the adequacy, it's better than some of the other areas of freight route that we have in our district.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I think that is all of our questions for you, Steve. So thank you very much for your attendance and help with that. Really appreciate it. We have any questions for Aaron before I ask for members' views on this? Sure.
Thank you, through you, the Chair. From what I've heard from the representatives, reading through the report, understanding the contours of the site, was there any discussion about traffic management plan or environment management plans being included as part of conditions and reserve matters? And I say that because that's where you can put in those mitigation measures. Yes, it might take the applicant more time and perhaps further investigations to look at what mitigation measures are, but it is clear that there's concerns regarding the impact off-site. I think they've done well to mitigate on-site, but this, particularly being in an employment zone, this is in part an industrial use, and part of that policy is looking at impacts off-site and not increasing any of those impacts. So I'm just wondering whether that's being considered, and if not, perhaps we can tie that into a condition as such.
Yeah, I guess in relation to traffic management, I guess we were through the discussions with engineering around being obviously on the freight route and not having a new point of access, that and acknowledging that there's already the existing approved use on the site, that it was considered that the extent of, I guess, additional traffic from the development would be within the capacity of the road. So therefore, I guess the matter of traffic and the impact on the junctions at either end of Mopper Road South was considered to be acceptable. I guess also noting the the feedback from the applicant is that this proposal is not to significantly increase the capacity of their fleet, but equally the proposal would potentially allow for increase in vehicles, which is also acknowledged. In relation to the environment, I imagine you're talking about a construction environment management plan, something to that effect. Yeah, that is something we've considered. We haven't recommended it within the application, but for a development of this scale, it certainly wouldn't be, wouldn't be out of step with often what's common practice. There are, to the extent of effects that are not managed under a development approval, they can default under local nuisance. So if the panel wanted to be more explicit about every aspect of the impact of this facility, in particular during construction, that could be a path that it wants to take, or otherwise it could decide that, look, there's enough within the documentation, and where particular issues haven't been explicitly dealt with within the application, it could then be dealt with via local nuisance, for example. That's certainly up to the panel in terms of where it would like to go with it. Thank you.
All right. No further questions for Aaron? In that case, members, I seek your views in respect of this matter. We obviously have heard from the representatives and the applicant and the staff, and we have a good quality report from the administration before us that is recommending that planning consent be granted, subject to a number of reserved matters and conditions. What are your views in respect of this one? Graham, thank you.
I'll jump in. Look, this is a very difficult application and very challenging. I think the difficulty we have as an assessment, as a panel, is on the one hand taking regard to what the applicant is trying to achieve, listening carefully to what the representatives have said, and those views have been, on both sides, have been expressed very clearly and very forcefully. But at the end of the day, we've got to make a decision against what the planning and design code says, and the code has zoned all of this land, that is all of the applicant's land, for employment purposes. And adding to that situation is the fact that a good half of the site is already developed and to a very high standard for what I will call a road transport terminal. So I think it would be very difficult from my point of view in rejecting the proposal. I'm not suggesting I would want to, but I'm simply making the point that we are duty bound to consider what the code says when we reach a decision on this application. My view would be that given that approximately half of the site is still vacant, but is contiguous with that part of the site that has been developed as a road transport terminal, I'll call it, I think it would be very difficult to reject the application. What I think we need to do, therefore, or against that background or that context, is look very carefully at the conditions that should be imposed on the approval, if the panel is minded to approve it, to ensure that the concerns that have been raised, particularly by the residents that have spoken tonight, their concerns have been addressed adequately, whether that's concerns about dust, concerns about noise, traffic movements generally within the site and surrounding the site. I think they're all valid planning issues that have been raised and need to be addressed. Having said all of that, I note that Mopper Road South now is a freight used heavily, not just by the applicants, but by many other operators. Newry Traders was mentioned. In fact, when I was out there today looking at the site, Newry Traders I saw two, if not three of their vehicles in close proximity. So it's not just the applicants' vehicles that we've got to contend with. I think it's other operators' vehicles together with the other vehicles more widely that are using Mopper Road South now as a freight bypass or as a bypass generally. Noting also, of course, that there's a new roundabout that's recently been constructed on the Greenock Road, Mopper Road corner at considerable expense. But all of these works have been put into place to recognise that Mopper Road is now used much more frequently by heavy vehicles. That's a decision that's been made by others, but it's now got to be taken into account. So look, all in all, I'm of the view that the application is deserving of approval. The conditions that should be imposed on the consent will be vital, however, to ensure that, as I said earlier, the residents' concerns have been adequately addressed. We can get to the conditions in due course if the panel is minded to approve the application.
Thank you. Rachel?
I'm just going to say, very well put. Couldn't have put it better myself, very much how I was thinking. Look, we have an existing use. It is an employment zone. This really, for me, comes down to a scalability issue. And look, for me, based on what I've heard, there's some very valid points that have been made by representatives, and I think it is vital that, should we support this, that the conditions that are imposed are valid, workable and easy to follow up on, and hold, you know, the developer to account, because what's being experienced from the residents, you know, yes, some of it is very real and coming from this use, but yes, I think more broadly it is on a freight route. There is some existing impacts from that, but look, I do have some concerns with some of the conditions, and I think we can tighten them up. I would also like to see perhaps, I'm really probably not keen on the all-weather surface. I'm a bit, because I do think with trucks and truck movements, speaking from experience on Kangaroo Island, where there's a lot of this stuff, it creates dust. You know, I'm not saying it be concrete. I think we could look at perhaps some other sort of spray seal. And yes, it's another surface. It's going to create runoff. It's going to create more water, but it's better than the impact from the dust. And it's going to have to be maintained continuously, because those vehicles are heavy. Yeah, and those trailers are heavy. So I would like to see something done there. But other than that, you know, I do agree with Graham. I think, you know, based on the planning and design code, there's not a lot really in there that we could refuse this on. I think this is about tightening up the conditional requirements so that we get some really good workable conditions on here that make the site workable and, you know, minimises those impacts beyond the site for the residents.
Thank you. Sarah or Jane? Sarah?
I guess from my perspective, I am honing in on the environmental impacts on this. I agree with Graham, the code doesn't really give us much to, I guess, assess in terms of looking at those environmental impacts, but also it is very difficult when you have an existing use in a zone that supports that use. I agree with Aaron in terms of a construction environmental management plan is required, and that is to manage the impacts of the construction. It is going to be noisy, it's going to be dusty, depending on what road surface, concrete trucks, etc. Building the mound, which I've raised, well, is that needing its own development approval? Is it development approval in itself? I also think that there is a need for an operational environmental management plan, and I think that will be to manage the ongoing operations of that site in terms of air quality, wastewater we can bring into that site, as well mitigation and use of air brakes in close proximity. And also there's the flip side of this is spray drift. You're in a primary production area, you've got people on site. The last thing you probably want your employers is to be breathing in spray drift because of the encroachment and then moving around in that top part of it. I've noticed across the road it's all vineyards, so I think there's sort of scope to expand on that, and I guess give a level of confidence to the residents that are in close proximity that there is going to be this ongoing maintenance and ongoing management of the impacts of development.
Okay, thank you. Jane?
Thank you, through the chair. I concur with my colleagues with what they've said. I find it very difficult to support the application without these extra conditions in place. I do agree that there is a legitimate ground on which to take these next steps for an operational environmental management plan as suggested, and a construction environmental impact plan would be appropriate, I would imagine, obviously pending further discussion. And yeah, in its current state, I probably would not support the application. However, after we've heard everything tonight, with extra conditions and stipulations so that the developer can be held accountable, I feel that that is a much more equitable outcome to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. I have similar views, members. I guess a couple of things I'd say to start. I don't think the proposal is seriously at variance with the code. I think it's an expansion to the existing use and it's within an employment zone. And I don't think it undermines the character values of the preservation area. I think from a land use perspective, for me, the proposal is, as I said, an expansion of the existing use in the employment zone. It doesn't specifically list this type of use, but I think that's as a result of changing definitions, as we've seen in the administration's report. I do think, though, the site's location is interesting because you have a number of different uses. You also have a different zoning as well, but this does squarely fall within the employment zone, and it does suggest that employment generating activities such as this are appropriate. I thought the built form elements were relatively modest. I think the reduction in height of the light towers was a positive. I think I would have had concerns around 20-metre high light towers in this particular context. So I think that's been a good amendment. I thought the siting of the development was reasonable. It does bring it closer to one or two sensitive receivers, but it is away from a majority. The hours of operation are extensive, but they're not unexpected in an employment zone in a rural context. That should be anticipated. The acoustic report did demonstrate compliance with the EPA criteria, and I think the measures that are proposed are reasonable. I think the surfacing arrangements, I thought they were reasonable from my perspective. I think the amendment to have concrete around the entire apron, I guess if I can call it that, was reasonable with the measures to have rubble and the I guess the dust prevention layer on the top. I thought that was reasonable. I think that, as we heard, the road network is sufficient. It's on a designated freight route, and I thought the landscaping was appropriate. I probably have some concern around it being purely tube stock. I think it'd be better if there was some advanced plantings that were put in place. And I was happy that the wastewater issues were being addressed separately, in my view. So I also think the proposal is worthy of consent, but it sounds as if we have some suggested amendments to reserve matters and conditions. So we'll give the staff an opportunity to draft some of those. Maybe one of the things that it might be worthwhile covering off on, because Sarah raised this around an operational environmental management plan, it might be good to get the view of the administration around having a plan like that drafted and the enforceability of that versus tackling some of those issues under the Local Nuisance and Litter Control Act, because there could be benefits and disbenefits to both approaches. So I guess a question without notice to you, Aaron, is what is your view in respect to an operational environmental management plan versus the Local Nuisance Act? But I think we are potentially looking at some additional reserve matters in terms of a CEMP, which I think is reasonable, and maybe landscaping as well. And then I guess it's open to the panel around your views on the surface.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. So I guess you have to look at each impact, in its own right. And we've talked, the panel's talked, and the representatives and applicant in quite a bit of detail about what those impacts are. and obviously the report goes into a fair bit of detail. Noise, I would suggest, is being dealt with in the application, so therefore it would be explicitly dealt with through this approval. And I think the acoustic report largely, I believe, deals with the matter of noise and then the associated conditions. The dust, I think the panel has, talked about the risks and concerns from having an unsealed surface that are subject to ongoing maintenance. And whilst there is a condition recommended within the consent, I think a sealed surface is always preferable. So I would just be clear that if the panel is wanting to go down that path, I think you would want to perhaps ask the applicant. The applicant clearly clarified earlier they'd consider it, but I guess I'm mindful as well that the current plan before the panel is for that unsealed area. So I guess if it was subject to a full sealing, then I would suggest that the any ongoing dust issues could be appropriately dealt with through local nuisance rather than through a CEMP. I guess that also leaves the matter of lighting, which I think again the initial lighting design that's been provided by the applicant does demonstrate to a reasonable extent the lighting, and they've committed to comply with the Australian standard for obtrusive light, and that would be a condition of the approval. So again, lighting would be addressed directly within the approval if granted. And then obviously stormwater would be dealt with through the reserve matter and conditions. So I guess that would then leave probably other issues associated with the construction, which again could be dealt with through local nuisance. A common example that we see is often the construction noise, where we're getting requests for like an exemption so that concreting can be done early in the morning. So whilst I do see there being benefit in having one, when you do break down each of the particular issues, they may well have already been covered. So, but yeah, again, happy to hear if the panel wants to go down that path, we can draft something up.
I'm not sure if this is the right time to raise it, but I've considered there are two conditions that I think we need to do some work on. Condition 7, which deals with the sealing of that parking area. And condition 16, I thought was a little bit, 16A particularly, just a little bit poorly worded. I don't mean to be critical of anybody that's put that condition together. But just on condition 7, I was writing something down as we were speaking. I think that the last sentence of condition 7 perhaps could be amended because it deals with the unsealed areas, and the way the condition is currently read reads the unsealed areas shall be regularly serviced to ensure rubble layer remains covered and is not exposed. To me, that doesn't deal with the concern that's been raised, because regularly serviced, what's that period? Is it a month, 6 months, 12 months? My suggestion, for what it's worth, and I'm happy to have other members throw their 2 bobs worth in, was simply to say something like, the unsealed parking surface shall be maintained on not less than a 12-monthly basis to ensure the rubble layer remains covered and does not generate dust, mud or similar environmental impacts. Now, we can work that up, but I think that's a better way of expressing the concern that's been raised by the representatives and their concerns that I share as well. The way the sentence is at the moment, it's just a little bit too open-ended for my liking.
And I guess my input to that is that's on the basis that we agree that it stays rubble. Or if it's some form of seal, like I said, baseline spray seal might be appropriate. It's thin, it works. Because my concern still is that, notwithstanding that you regularly kind of tackle it every 12 months, there's still dust that comes out from rubble because it breaks down over time and you get the dust coming up from it. So you still may have the rubble there, but you get all this layer of dust that sits below. So unless you water it down, you're still going to get the dust. So I think we need to think really carefully about it. Happy to talk it through and see what others think. But I've also, just while I've got everyone's attention, I've also got concerns with condition 12 because I think it's moved on. The Resonate report talks about a 1.5 metre fence, but I think you're saying it's 2 now. So that condition doesn't really refer, because it just says prepared in accordance with the Resonate report. But that report talks about a 1.5 fence, but it's in fact 2 metres. So we might just want to think that through. I think that we need to, for the landscaping, come up with another reserve matter, because I think it's important that even though there's a landscape plan, I think let's not rush it. Let's put it as a reserve matter, get them to go away, have a bit of a think about it and come up with something and then come back and get it signed off. I think that's the wise thing to do. And then condition 15, because overnight accommodation in private movers using ice packs, air conditioning is precluded. Is that still relevant? Because didn't they say they're not doing that? Wasn't there an agreement that they're not staying in it? So is that condition still relevant? Do you still want to have it on there, just just to make sure?
Yeah, I guess it's just a belts and braces type approach that the applicant has now advised that in writing, and we're just confirming it. I guess one of the benefits of having a condition is that if the site, for example, is sold and somebody looks to buy this, the site, that they know very clearly that that is part of their obligations.
Okay, cool. And then my final one was just in reserve matter number 3 about the final civil and site works plan, where it talks about shall address cut and fill details. Are we comfortable that the cut and fill required is not going to be over 1 metre? Because noting that will become development.
Yeah, so in the plans there are indicative design levels for the finished surface. So there are details in there, but I think we want to see the final finished surfaces. From my review of that plan, it still does show that it's grading towards the detention basin, obviously, because that's the way the land falls, but there's also contouring to ensure the stormwater management works effectively.
Okay, good, because that was just, I was just kind of like, if we don't know exactly what that entails, we need to be a bit careful there too. And I just think, like, if we're going to do a CMP, it's probably wise, because there's a mound going up and there's going to be a lot of dust and earth moving and stuff like that. So it's probably wise to have a CMP just to cover some of the during construction stuff, just on a broad level.
Jane, did you have your microphone on before? Did you want to make a...
No, that's okay, thank you. Have you finished? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, through the chair. I just feel that it will be good to revisit the ceiling discussion of and that the dust really, if there's any opportunity to mitigate the environmental impact that dust has, particularly when we have industrial interface with residential, it's extremely challenging in so many ways. So anything we can do within our capacity to mitigate that, I would welcome. That's reasonable. Thank you. That's really it. And also one other query was just the odour from the water, the wastewater. Did we actually reach a conclusive discussion about that? With please forgive me if I've missed something, but yeah, is there an outcome there that will actually, or is it in one of the conditions that I may have overlooked, but
Yeah, so
it just says water quality, doesn't it? But
yeah, the water quality is related to stormwater management. The trade waste, the concerns that some of the representatives have expressed relates to the existing trade waste lagoon that is part of the original development approval. And so this application for extension of the, if you want to call it a road transport terminal, doesn't change the situation in relation to trade waste, but the applicant has clearly acknowledged that there has been some issues with that system, and that there have been quite extensive discussions with our environmental health team and HAN working towards resolving that issue. And I guess our position is that that's not tied to the current application in front of you. So there is a current issue that needs to be resolved, but we think that's a separate matter. But nonetheless, the concerns of the representatives have been acknowledged, and that needs to be addressed.
thank you. I just feel that in good faith, that would be extremely reasonable and moving forward. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, members, it sounds as if we have a number of different changes we need to consider, so perhaps let's try and work through them one by one. And I agree with Jane, and that it might be good to start initially with that ceiling discussion, because that probably leads to some of the other conditions that we're looking to impose. And I might just offer my 2 cents to start with, if I can. The reason that I think the unsurfaced area is appropriate, or unsealed, sorry, I should say, is that I'm concerned about 2 things. One, it's not the panel's role to redesign a proposal that comes before us. It's come before us with an unsealed surface as the proposal, and as per the advice from Aaron earlier, unless the applicant is prepared to at this stage agree to change the seal to change to a sealed surface, I don't think it's reasonable for us to condition it in the absence of their agreement. And the other reason I'm concerned about it is that it has the potential to change some of the stormwater management arrangements that have been spoken about, because there's going to be a much larger impervious area, and that might undermine some of the, I guess, what's trying to be achieved, as we heard from Steve earlier, around there's actually going to be a benefit in terms of the amount of runoff coming from the site, and if we seal it, that might undermine that goal. So that they were the reasons that I thought it was appropriate. However, I do think the wording that Graham suggested, I agree with, because I think it's worth tightening that condition around the maintenance to make sure that dust isn't an issue, because it is a legitimate concern. And then I'm also conscious that, that condition provides an enforceable, option in the future, should dust become a concern. So that's my opinion, but obviously that's only my opinion. If we have a majority of members who think that sealing is appropriate, then I suggest we put that to the applicant. So really, it's up to you. Sorry, Aaron, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I
first?
might just add to that, and Steve's just provided some further comments just around the sealing and the implications. And one of them is that full sealing will significantly affect the stormwater detention requirements. So this will have a spatial implication, i.e. that there will be a need for a larger volume of storage area. And I think Steve's already identified that there is likely to be a need for an increase to address the outflow of the flow rate. But if the area is fully sealed, that will have a significant implication. The other point he just wanted to raise was that spray seal wouldn't hold. Typically, it's too weak for trucks. So yeah, typically with heavy vehicles, and Steve's mentioned this of that nature with shoving and scraping. So typically they're a heavy surface pavement that's concrete. Or deep lift bitumen asphalt, as Steve mentioned. So I'm no engineer.
All right, members. So do we have any different views? Are we happy to accept an unsealed surface, or do we want to pose something?
I fully concur with what you've just said, Jeff, about, I think it was condition 7, for all of the reasons that have subsequently been put, including from Aaron. The other condition, while we're talking about condition, well, two of them, is condition 15, which talked about overnight accommodation. My suggestion is simply we should have a condition in the consent to deal with the possibility, if not by the current applicant, by subsequent beneficiaries of the consent that might be imposed on the site. Simply saying something like, the site shall not be used for overnight accommodation and prime movers, and be done with it, and be quite upfront about that. So replace the existing condition 15 with something as direct as that, yes. And the only other, while we're talking about conditions, condition 16, as I said, I think in passing earlier, 16A is a little bit unwieldy the way it's expressed. I would suggest that we have words something like, add the words, not idle for more than 5 minutes per truck in a 15-minute period. We can fine-tune that as well, but I think with those changes I'm happy with all other conditions, but that's subject to further debate perhaps.
All right, thank you. So we have agreement around the surface, or majority agreement, perhaps I should suggest. Yeah.
Can I suggest, like, if, and this is a question I don't know the answer to, if there is going to be like some sort of a rubble surface, can we nominate how thick it has to be? Like it's got to be of X thickness. Because, you know, there's a bit of a difference of having that much rubble versus, do you know what I mean? Just, can we get some advice maybe?
Look, yeah, I mean, Steve's probably best placed to answer from an engineering point of view, but I think there is an extent where, as the authority, we need to deal with the impacts or the effects of that issue without designing it and without necessarily stipulating what that should be. I guess it's ultimately up for the applicant to manage that as an ongoing matter. And I guess if it means that there needs to be more maintenance because it's a thinner surface, or less maintenance because it's a thicker surface, I guess that's a matter for the applicant. But as I say, Steve would be best placed to comment from an engineering point of view.
Well, yeah, happy for Steve to comment on it. I guess for what it's worth, I have the same view. I think it goes beyond what the panel should be considering, is my personal opinion.
And so this might be just supplementary comments, but in terms of a level of service for the pavement, the depth of the pavement will be designed. To be honest, gravel pavements can actually act as water-sensitive urban development, water-sensitive devices that can actually improve your water quality by taking the water off the surface and infiltrating it into the substrata, and has benefits. And then the whole lot just needs to be serviceable such that it can function to the level required for those trucks and the scraping and the various movements of those vehicles, which are far beyond anything that a car or a caravan and trailer would provide. And that should be considered in the design and just achieve a performance rather than us work the other way around.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. All right then, members. It sounds as if we have general agreement around the unsurfaced area. So perhaps the first thing we should do is see if we can amend the wording at the end of condition 7, Aaron, to reflect that which Graham mentioned earlier. Do you need Graham to repeat that?
Yeah, if Graham can, apologies, I've been having some issues with the screen beam this evening. It's kept dropping out. So what I'll do is I may suggest if we can make the appropriate updates, and then I'll see if I can get it on the screen and then show the panel so that everyone is on the same page.
Okay, well, you want me to read it out, Aaron?
Yes, please. So this is the last
The
sentence
last
of condition
sentence only
7.
of condition 7. My suggestion is the unsealed parking surface shall be maintained on not less than a 12-monthly basis to ensure the rubble layer remains covered and does not generate dust, mud or other environmental impacts.
Just through the chair, just based on what we just heard about all the technicalities, could we maybe add something in there about to achieve a design performance suitable for trucks? Something to that effect? Because they were the words that were used. So, yes, we're going to regularly service it to ensure the layer remains covered, but it's to achieve a design performance that's suitable for trucks.
Oh, look, it's up to the panel. We can include it.
I just wonder though, in condition 7, Rachel, further up in the first or second sentence, it says the surface shall consist of a standard appropriate for the intended traffic volumes and vehicle types. So the sentence that I'm suggesting is at the end of that, where it seems to me it's already covered. I might be wrong, but
Okay.
that's
Look,
the way
I
I
just
see it.
thought that word design performance was good. I think that's got a bit more bang to it. Whether we put it at the end or up in that other and reword, because I take your point, there is some wording up in the consist of a standard appropriate. Whether we could just say, I know it's semantics, but I just think it's got a bit more guts to it.
So I think after the word standard, insert the words and design performance appropriate for the intended traffic. Yep.
Thank you. We'll see that on the screen momentarily. And then can I take us to potentially a reserve matter around a CEMP, which I think there seems to be, oh, sorry, Jane,
No, that's
which I think there seems to be general agreement for. I would assume the administration has standard wording for something like that.
Look, typically we don't use them too much these days, but I understand the words would be something to the effect of, and it's focused on construction primarily. So I guess we're focusing on the matters of drainage, dust, drag out, all those things which I think are probably the highest risk elements during construction.
Jane, sorry.
Oh, thank you. I was still in item number 7. Sorry. Still left behind.
Aaron's typing.
No, oh look, and I think it's, I'm sure it's all been covered and addressed, but given that I'm surrounded by expertise with very experienced planners, I was after as well trying to look for a measurable, some sort of regulatory requirement that would ensure specific performance for that particular proposal, so that we would be assured that there would be a regular time frame of, I noticed that Graham suggested 12 monthly. Is there a prescriptive regulatory requirement for trucks on dirt roads, dust, in close proximity to residential area? Aaron, thank you for your help.
Well, on a public road, no, the Local Nuisance Litter Control Act doesn't apply to it.
Right.
On a private road, I believe it does. So
Right, so this would have the same application then? Is
yeah,
that right? Yes.
yep.
Okay, so that regulatory requirement.
But the test for local nuisance is that it has to be unreasonable, and there is a definition under the Local Nuisance Litter Control Act.
Okay,
So
it
and it has to be
unreasonable.
experienced at a sensitive receiver. So there is a level of subjectivity about what is
Yes.
unreasonable.
Okay,
And
so
it also,
perhaps,
it also has to be unreasonable in a view of an authorised officer. So
Okay.
it's, yeah.
so perhaps we could put in the unsealed areas should be regularly serviced, just as a suggestion, as Graham proposed with your wording, or as reasonable given the environmental conditions at, like if we've got a dust storm or a 50 kilometre an hour winds, and you've got however many vehicles coming through, I would think it would be reasonable to go and wet that area down. Excuse me for my ignorance if I'm being wrong or inappropriate, but I just thought that would be reasonable for reduction of environmental, perhaps an extreme example, but it happens. We had 40 kilometre an hour winds yesterday. Where we live, there's dust going everywhere. So just from personal experience, from living in country. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know if there's some way, Aaron, where you could comfortably. Fabulous.
Can I?
If the panel thinks that's reasonable.
I guess this is where I was heading with an operational environmental management plan. You know, for whatever reason, it may flood. Who knows what the weather's doing these days? But also to manage bushfire operations. I know you're in a medium bushfire area. I think given where you are and perhaps some insight knowledge is the Department of Housing and Urban Development's work over the last 12 months, I think that bushfire needs to be considered as part of that as well, particularly evacuation routes, what you do on site, what do you do, where do you store chemicals, etc. How do you move all that? It's almost like that operational environmental management plan brings all the elements of the environment together in one document. I agree with Aaron that some of those can be managed through legislation, but I think for ease of the residents are surrounding you, and I also think for your employees, it would cover off on things such as if in an inclement weather or during a hazard, ongoing management of dust, ongoing management of light spill. You know, once you get the lights erected, you may need to adjust them slightly. You know, so there's going to be some trial and error with this. It's a quite significant development located at that site, and it is in close proximity to sensitive receivers or residential dwellings as well. It can also manage spray drift from surrounding areas onto your site as well. So I guess that's why I raised that. I've used them quite often in development assessment, not in South Australia, up in Queensland. It's almost a standard requirement for these big ticket items. Supermarkets is a prime example as well. But you can also manage your on-site traffic movements through that potentially as well, if that helps. So I think it's just all about the management of your on-site and the impacts, not only to, you know, yourself, your employees, but also those external impacts that have been raised today as well.
We've got a number of different issues going around, so let's just do it one by one. So understand about the point that Jane's made around having the word reasonable in condition 7. So Aaron's got some draft wording. I think we'll look at that at the end when we finish the conditions and revisit condition 7 and just work out if it has addressed everything that we're after. Might come to the OEMP last. We've got some draft wording, I presume now, for the CEMP, I think, and a reserve matter around that. So we'll also look at that momentarily. The next thing we had was a reserve matter around landscaping and around, we have some landscaping plans that are with the documentation already, but perhaps some greater detail around the maturity of plantings and their location and maintenance requirements maybe. It was drip irrigated, was in the documentation, but so we would have some standard wording for that. So we'll see that momentarily too. I think there's general agreement around a reserve matter for that. Then we had condition 12, which was around the recommended treatments within the environmental noise assessment and perhaps spelling those out because we've had some changes post the report. So that would simply be, I guess, an amendment to spell out what is in that section plus note the change to the fence height. So there needs to be some quick typing if we can from Aaron in that regard so we can have some amendments to condition 12. Then we had condition 15 and around being a bit more, I guess, direct and clear in that overnight accommodation in prime movers is not permitted. Simple as that. Which obviously rules out the ice packs because there's no overnight accommodation anyway. So making that clear. And then we had condition 16A and the wording around that. I don't know if you had a suggested amendment for that, Graham. Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've said not idle for more than 5 minutes in a truck.
Oh,
yeah.
Excellent. Now, is that, aside from OEMP, is that everything
Not quite, and
Not
I
quite.
apologise for this comment. It's my mistake. Condition 7, I said not idle, maintained on not less than a 12 monthly basis. That should be not more than, not less than. It's quite a significant change. One word, but very important. In my haste, so I'm sorry, Aaron. It's just one word to be replaced.
One of those typos.
Not less than, not more than.
Yes. Yep. All right. Now, is there any condition or reserve matter aside from the OEMP that I've missed? No? Okay, so in that case, when Aaron's finished making the amendments, we'll see if we can get that on the screen for members to see. Now, it's worth having a discussion around the OEMP and whether as a panel we think that's appropriate in this circumstance. So I'm happy to take members' views on that. Obviously, Sarah's put her views forward. Do we have different views or questions? Yeah, great.
I won't necessarily lead the debate or influence it, but look, I'm not a big fan of those sorts of documents in the circumstances where we've got however many reserved matters and however many 16 or 17 or more conditions, 16 conditions. I think we've covered the issues that we're concerned about adequately, and I would have thought that some of the issues that have been raised would be dealt with at the building consent stage. I might be wrong, but I would have thought that that's where those issues lie.
Sure. Do we have other views?
Yeah, look, I'm not too fussed about not having it either. I think a lot of the things that are raised can be flagged with council and dealt with under the local nuisance legislation, and it appears that there is some of that going on. I mean, I think the stuff on the trade waste is probably under the Public Health Act, but you can actually deal with it under local nuisance as well. So that legislation's pretty powerful. So I think there's a lot of scope to deal with that general nuisance.
Jane, do you have any views on it at this point?
I was just going to ask Sarah, given you've heard our colleagues, where do you sit with that now?
Look, I think it's an option. If council and the panel are satisfied that it can be dealt with through those pieces of legislation, and there are multiple, then that's fine. I guess for limiting impacts on site, it is an option. But as Graham said, given the extent of conditions and reserve matters, I think, like I said, as the time goes on and if there are issues, they can be dealt with and potentially mitigated through other means, variation to the development approval or mitigation measures put in place by the proponent.
Okay, thank you. And yes, look, I agree. I think every issue that Sarah's raised is a valid, important issue that needs to be controlled. I think my view is that the Local Nuisance Act is the most appropriate mechanism for that, I think. So it sounds as if we're all in agreement on that too. So can I ask if you've finished with the amended wording, if we can have that on the screen, if that's possible from a technical perspective? Yes.
Just bear with me a sec. I'm hoping this connects because, as I said earlier, it's been dropping out. Yeah, look, I may see if I can send it to Marie. She may be able to show it on the screen. Oh, hang on. Oh, is that... Sorry, Marie, is that your screen?
So we'll just ask the gallery to bear with us for 5 minutes just while we see if we can arrange for this to come on the screen, because want obviously the panel, but also all of those who are with us, the applicant and the representatives, to be clear on what is being proposed as part of the recommendation. Members, while we're waiting, we obviously have the first two recommendations that form part of our agenda before we get to what I call the substantive recommendation, which is around the proposal not being seriously at variance and around it not undermining the principles of the Character Preservation Act. So perhaps I'll put the seriously at variance recommendation first. This is a recommendation. The proposal is not seriously at variance with the Planning and Design Code. Rachel, you're prepared to move? Is it? Graham, thank you. I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. And now we have a recommendation that the proposal does not offend those principles of the Character Preservation Act. We have someone prepared. I think I'll take Sarah as the mover, and Graham as the seconder. Yes, all those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Now I'll just wait until we've got the wording on the screen, and then I will, once we've gone through the formalities, I'll explain to the gallery what has occurred and what has happened.
So
Now,
sorry, Jeff, do you want me to run through it?
yes, if you like.
So I did come up with the words for a CEMP, but if the panel does not feel the need that it wishes to apply one, then it's welcome to obviously remove it. So essentially the wording I came up with was preparation of construction environment management plan during construction phase and ongoing operational phase that shall include all of the following to avoid local nuisance of sensitive receivers in the locality of the site of development. I think during construction would have to come out. Those two words, and then it essentially covers construction hours, dust management, stormwater management, light spill management, noise management, drag out of mud during construction, bushfire management, and effects from adjacent uses upon the development, i.e. spray drift. Okay. Yep.
That's the operational thing.
Yep. So I think you'd be taking the last two out and remove the words during construction.
So it's just what's going on while it's being constructed. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you keep that. Yep.
No.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I meant the words during construction.
No, I meant to remove them.
No,
I'll leave that.
during construction stage.
Sorry, take out G and H, Murray.
Yes. That's
Yep. Yep. Thank you. Yep. Okay, thank you. So the next one was a preparation of a final landscaping plan that shall include all the following details. Species for all landscaping to be used, noting species shall be used generally in accordance with the approved plans. Use of advanced growth species for all plantings and include trees to provide screening of the development at maturity and irrigation methods to ensure all plantings grow successfully.
When you say use of advanced growth, are we after like a minimum height at planting, at time of planting? Because you can specify that.
Well, I think, we haven't...
What does advanced growth mean?
Well, yeah, there's a level of interpretation about that. I guess we can also, if you want to, detail the pot sizes for for the species. So it may be, Marie, that you include a separate point below B that includes details of pot sizes.
Are we satisfied with that now, members?
So that was the fifth reserve matter, and then coming to the conditions. So in relation to 7, so it says there the unsealed parking surface shall be maintained on not more than 12 monthly basis to ensure the rubble layer remains covered and does not generate dust, mud or other environmental impacts that result in unreasonable local nuisance upon a sensitive receiver in the locality of the site of the development. Well, it could be that I actually don't think you need the words unreasonable, but I did add it in. I think you could actually remove that, but it's up to the panel. Well, yes.
Sorry, Rachel, we need to use our microphones given that the meeting's being...
Sorry, I'm loud. Sorry,
Yes.
getting a bit excited. Third line, I just thought, and the surface shall be of a standard and design performance, not consist. So just shall be. Does that read a bit better? Shall be. The surface shall
Yep.
be of a standard and design performance.
Yep. And then I think you can remove the words unreasonable before local nuisance.
I think, Aaron, that you've put that in, thank you. Because you put local nuisance in as well, I think that's
That's
absolutely
clear,
spot
yep.
on. Yeah,
Yep.
that's very
Okay.
clear. So that it's either qualifies for that or it doesn't, so
Yep.
that's fine.
So if we keep going down,
Thank you.
so condition 12 has now been changed to say a 2 metre high solar barrier shall be constructed on the southern boundary of the site. The barrier shall be located on top of the 2 metre high landscape mound, making the total obstruction height 3.5 metres. The barrier can be constructed from a solid material such as Colorbond or similar with a minimum of 0.42 BMT and minimum density of 4 kilos M3. The landscape mounted barrier shall be established prior to commencement of use and shall be maintained at all times thereafter.
It'll be 4 metres high anyway, won't it?
Just through the chair, if I may, I know that condition did say, in accordance with clause 6.3 under the Resonate report, there was also something there about the road surface to minimise the noise generated by the tankers. The road surface along the route of the trucks is to be well maintained, should not have any purpose-built dips or bumps for speed management. So that's in there as well, so I don't know.
Okay, so apologies, Murray. It should be a 1.5 metre landscape mound. It's not 2 metres. So that was an error there. That should be 1.5. Whether the panel wanted to add that as a separate condition in relation to the road surface. Sorry, that's dealt with as a separate condition in that the panel will need to make sure that the surface is maintained. So whether or not that needs to be separately dealt with.
Just through the chair, I think my concern is that it was actually a recommendation of Resonate. So technically speaking, because that condition 12 did say, in accordance with that clause 3 of the Resonate report, that included part of it. So I think we should condition it. That's my view. Obviously,
It may be that if the panel decides to have a separate condition regarding that 6.3.2.
Well, I'm in your hands, members, about whether or not you... I don't...
I'd like one.
Yeah, I don't have a strong view in the alternative, so... No.
So I think through the chair, I would suggest that, Marie, if that could be added, 6.3.2 in the Resonate report would be a separate condition. Or perhaps, sorry, Marie, maybe add it as a separate sentence at the end of condition 12. Yep. And the update there, the following is not permitted in the truck and trailer. That should be parking facility at any time. Oh, no, we didn't change that, sorry, condition 13.
15 and 16.
15, the proposed development shall not be used for overnight accommodation in prime movers at any time. And 16, use of the truck and trailer parking facility during the nighttime period shall not exceed the following at any time, not idle for more than 5 minutes in a truck, and 16 truck movements with tanker trailer attached in an hour.
All right, members. They always say never draft by committee for this exact reason, because it takes a long time, but hopefully we've now addressed all of the points the members have made, and a big thank you to Aaron and the administration for drafting all of those elements. Do we have any final comments in relation to any of those? Are we satisfied with what's now on the screen? Satisfied? Yep, sure. All right. Sorry, you looked as if you wanted to say something. All right, members. We have moved the first two recommendations, so now we have the amended recommendation before us that has those two additional reserve matters and all of the amendments to the conditions. We have someone who's prepared to move. Graham, you're moving. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded Rachel. Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. So for the benefit of those who are with us, because that can be hard to follow, particularly when you're doing substantial amendments, the panel has granted planning consent to the proposal, so it is approved. There may be a building consent that's required, and then development approval will be issued. It is subject, though, to the satisfaction of those reserve matters and compliance with all of the conditions moving forward. Now, if you do have any further questions about the process from here, or if you're after copies of the wording, or you have any queries about anything that's happened tonight, then you're more than welcome to talk to the administration the next business day. They'll be happy to assist you, but we do now need to move on with another item that we have. So thank you very much for your attendance and input. We really appreciate it. You are welcome to either stay with us or leave us at this point. So thank you. And members, we need to move to our second item on our agenda now. Just bear with me while I find it. So members, this is an application by the council for the installation of 4 light towers and the removal of 6 existing light towers.
Just before you, I
sorry.
think
Jane
my
needs
apologies.
to
Declare
yes.
a conflict and leave the room.
May I please declare a conflict of interest and leave the room?
By all of the extensive conversations we've had.
Jump in,
So yes, thank you, Jane. If you can leave the room, that would be great. We'll invite you back in for the last 2
Do you mind
items.
if I take my laptop? I'll do some preparation work outside
Absolutely.
for another meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You can leave it open. Yeah, thank you. So as I was saying, at the Angaston Sporting Complex in the established neighbourhood zone, performance assessed and notified. We did have a representative who indicated a desire to be heard. Now, Aaron, do you have anything you'd like to take us through as an introduction to the item?
No, look, nothing further that's otherwise dealt with in the report. So, yeah, nothing further to add, but happy to take any questions either now or after. Thanks.
Thank you. Now, members, we did have a representative, Ms. Carmel Connors. So, you're Carmel. You still like to address the panel? Yeah, absolutely. Please step up. You heard the rules I outlined before.
Yes, I think I can remember them. You're the
Sure.
chair?
I am the chair, yes.
I've only
You have something?
printed off a copy for one person. But I was told to make my presentation in writing. Is that correct?
Well, your representation that you put in as part of the application, we've already received and had a copy of. But if you have something that you'd like
Yes,
to,
I have something further.
and we're happy to. The meeting procedures that the panel has stipulate that any additional information that you'd like to present can be accepted at my discretion. So is this just a copy of what you'd like to read out tonight? Is that sure? Well, I'm happy to accept that, and I'll pass it around to the members as you work through it. But do you still want to speak to it verbally, or you just like? Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I just need you to turn the microphone on too, Carl, just to make sure we can hear you. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you all for your time. Just firstly, a question: was the owner of Hahn Trucking Company, was he invited to attend this meeting tonight?
Oh, thank you for the question, Carmel. But the way this process works is this is really an opportunity for you just to speak to your concerns about this item. It's not really appropriate for me to speak about other items. I guess in this circumstance, your question doesn't go into anything confidential. The way the process works is that when an item comes before the panel for consideration, any representor who's indicated a desire to be heard is invited to the meeting, and the applicant is also invited to the meeting and offered a chance to respond. So, that's the way the process works. So it'll be the same for you here. You've been invited, and obviously the applicant, which is in this case the council, has been invited to respond.
Oh, okay. So I was a little bit confused about that, because I thought maybe somebody from the Angaston Football Club might be here, but...
Sure, no, in this case it's council as the landowner, so they're also
yeah,
the
I'm
applicant.
not very familiar with these kinds of processes, so please forgive me.
Oh, sure, no problem.
For some years now, I have had to endure light trespass from existing floodlights at Angus Recreation Park on winter nights during football season. This is since all the trees, 70 trees, were cut down in the park to make the second oval. Before that, the trees protected my property from light coming from the oval at night. The light pours into my backyard, making it difficult to walk around. I have nearly tripped over on a few occasions in the past because I can't see where I'm walking as the lights are too bright. One light in particular is angled straight into my eye view, which blinds me. So my property is directly across from Angus Recreation Park. There's no trees to stop that light. I'll continue. The light also penetrates in through my back kitchen and bedroom windows, which intrudes on my right to a restful sleep in darkness. Because of this already existing issue, I would like to be assured that every effort will be made to ensure that there will be no direct light or light trespass on my property or in through my windows with the installation of proposed new flood lighting at the oval. So I'd like to ask what measures will be taken to shield my residents from light trespass in this case. If you could just table that until I'm finished. Are there shields of some kind that can be fitted to the new light towers which can act to block light beaming in certain directions? In this instance, my residence, which is in a direct line from the light towers with no obstructions such as trees to mitigate these very high and bright lights. Can you provide me with the contact details of the person in charge of this development who can consult with me to ensure my needs are met? My second concern is in regard to possible removal of trees. Can you assure me that no trees will be cut down to install the new electrical wiring for the new lighting towers? I am very concerned in this regard since over 70 trees were cut down for the second oval some years ago. Also, will these new lights be used for events in the summer months as well as winter in the future? I have enclosed a copy of the Football South Australia Procedure and Policies paper outlining on page 3.5, the responsibilities of Football SA to ensure that no disturbance or discomfort is caused to neighbouring properties and residents or spectators. In making this determination, the following should be taken into consideration. The paper then outlines in dot points the details. It also goes on to outline the football club lighting audit requirements. And I've given you a copy of that. So I'm not proposing against the development because I know that's pretty pointless, but being impacted by the lights that already exist, I'd like to be assured that some consideration will be taken for my needs as a resident.
Thank you, Carmel, for your sorry, I've got a fly around my head, but thank you for your presentation. Members, do you have any questions you'd like to pose?
Just one very quickly. I think your property, you're in the name of the street, is it Smith Street?
Mm-hmm.
On the corner of Smith Street, is that where?
Yes, that's correct.
But you're not directly adjacent to the oval, are you?
No, but I'm on a corner block,
Yeah,
and
I
so
can
there's
see that.
Hague Crescent,
Yes.
which is where my property actually runs down through. So there's Gramp Avenue, Hague Crescent, Smith Street,
Yes.
and my property runs between those two all the way down the Hague Crescent.
But you're number 2 Smith Street, is
No,
that correct?
I'm number 18.
Oh, my apologies, my
Yeah.
apologies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's clear, thank you.
So when I walk out on to the street, I can look straight down to the oval from my property.
Thank you.
And the lights, the light towers, as they are at this stage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions, members? No? Right, we do have a representative from the council, the applicant, who's going to respond in a moment, so they will have heard your questions. So thank you, Carmel. You're welcome to
Very
return
good.
to your seat. We'll now,
Just one other question. Can somebody answer, can somebody tell me what the Australian standard is for intrusive light? Because I heard you mention that earlier. Do you have, can you outline to me what that might be, or do I just have to Google it?
Well, it's not something that we as a panel can necessarily answer. So the way the representation process works is you get an opportunity to, I guess, put to us any comments that you have or any things that you would like to be considered. The applicant then gets an opportunity to respond to the concerns that you've raised, but it's not like it's not an open dialogue sort of forum where we respond to questions you've raised. But I have heard what you said,
Okay.
and perhaps we can put a question to the administration shortly around the Australian
you.
standard and how they enforce that. So we want to try and make sure that everyone's queries get answered. So thank you, Carmel. You're welcome to retake your seat and observe the rest of the meeting. And now I might ask the applicant. We have Ben Cromwick on behalf of the council. You've obviously heard the concerns and some of the questions that have been raised, Ben, so if I can invite you to respond.
No worries, thank you. So thank you for the questions and thanks for having me. With regards to light spill, the existing setup there is an old halogen system that it consists of 6 poles roughly around the 15 metre mark. The halogen system is an insufficient system and its used by date is far less superior than the new LED system. With the halogen system, it's poorly designed so it shoots light out more horizontal than directional down. With the new design through the LEDs, the poles are 27 metres tall, which give you a greater height, and you can angle the lights down to give you more direct lighting control. The new lights going in are LED. So from a council point of view, the new investment and project will actually decrease light spill that's existing there. The new development will comply with the Australian standards in lighting designs, and that's all in the documentation. With regards to the trees side of things, no trees are planned for removal as part of this project. The laying of the cable will be open trench where we can, where we're around trees within SRZs or TPZs. It'll be non-mechanical means via directional boring, hand digging. At worst, there may be minimal pruning, but we don't foresee any of that. But just to cover all bases, we'll say that.
Okay, thank you. You have questions, members? Yeah, Graham.
Only one very quickly. Thank you for all of that, Ben. You've answered a couple of the questions I was going to put to you. So we're all clear about this, and I think I am, but there are two ovals in the complex. One oval, which is the one that shows dark green on here, is the main oval, which is where the poles, the new lights will go. The second oval, though, there are no lights there now and no lights are proposed. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. The only new lights are for the main oval to replace the existing.
Yep. And I'll just add, I'm only raising this because that second oval, the smaller of the two ovals, is directly or adjacent to Graham Avenue and adjacent to, in line with Hague Street, which is the street that the representative lives on, or on the corner of, correct, I should say. Thank you.
No worries, thank you.
And then Ben, sorry, you did cover this, but I guess just for the sake of clarity and everyone understanding. So one of the questions Carmel asked was around what measures will be taken to minimise light intrusion. And from what you're saying, it's really the type and design of the light itself, which will direct it more downward, and so that will have a beneficial impact in terms of
correct
light spill, and that's been the case in the other ovals that have been upgraded. Is that correct?
So the product that we're using is currently installed at Tanunda Oval, Tanunda Rugby, at Lindock. We also have it. It was an old system at Williamstown, which is currently not being used anymore, but it's a proven system. Tanunda Oval is residential either side of it, a lot more closer than Anguston, and the light spill is very minimal to nothing. You can stand 10 metres off the oval and it's dark.
Thank you. And then I guess my second question was around the Australian standard question that was raised. I'm assuming that would have been part of the council's tender documentation, essentially, correct, which is it must comply with the standard.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Yep. And we get lighting designs, pre-designs for that. So when the lights are installed, they're already pre-pointed down on the ground. The poles are stood up, and then they're double-checked to make sure there's a nighttime audit that they go and undertake and make sure it's fully compliant.
Right, thank you.
No
Any
worries.
further questions, members? No? In that case, thank you very much, Ben. We appreciate it. All right, members. Sure. I think in this circumstance, the council would make themselves available. It would be Ben in the first instance who you could contact.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Ben. Members, sorry, not questions. Well, the time has passed unless you have any questions for Aaron. I was going to ask for your views in respect of this matter. We obviously have a report before us that recommends that planning consent be granted, and you've obviously heard from the representative and the applicant. Rachel.
Happy to go first. Look, I fully support this. It's an existing recreational facility. It's got old lights that no longer probably serve a purpose or not to standard really for playing certain types of sport. These new LED lights are really good, and looking at the design, I can see that the light heads have the appropriate guards on the sides, and that prevents the spillage and directs the light downward. Having had a look at the light spill diagrams, it's all within like the Australian standard, so the lux levels or whatever they measure them in are all fine. So I really have no objection to this at all, and I think it's probably a much needed upgrade to make the facility more usable for a wide range of sports.
Thank you. Graham?
And I concur with what Rachel has just said. I think it's a very thorough report, and I think it's deserving of consent in accordance with the conditions that have been listed in the agenda.
Sarah?
Look, I always think these are always a hard balance to find, particularly when you've got residential development abutting public open space, but I concur with the other panel members that this is a much needed upgrade for the community, but also it is consistent with the zoning, it is consistent with the policy as well, and I support as is.
Thank you. Look, I have similar views, members. I think the concerns that have been raised are valid. I think whenever you've got illumination in a locality, it's important to make sure that it's to an appropriate standard, but I think we can be confident that this is an improvement compared to what currently exists, and that's what all the application documentation before us shows. So I think, also the reduction in light towers is probably beneficial from a visual amenity perspective as well. So, so I have similar views, and I was satisfied that it wasn't seriously at variance or undermining the character values of the district. So it sounds as if we are all in agreement. Now, I might see if someone is prepared to move our first recommendation around the proposal not being seriously at variance. Sarah, thank you. Is there a seconder? Rachel, thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Then we have the second recommendation around it not undermining the values of the Character Preservation Act. Do we have a mover? Graham, I think. Graham moved and Sarah seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's carried. And then we have our final recommendation, which is that planning consent is granted. It is subject to those three conditions and advisory notes. Rachel, you're moving. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Sarah, thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand, and that's carried unanimously. So for the benefit of those who are with us, that application has received planning consent. Now, building consent and development approval will still be required, and obviously those conditions will need to be complied with moving forward. And if you do have any questions around the decision or the process from here or what your rights are, more than welcome to contact the administration and they'll be happy to assist you. So we do have a couple of administrative items to go on our agenda, so you're welcome to stay with us or leave us at this point. And thank you very much for your input. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
That took like 10 minutes and I had to sit through 2.5 hours of all of that other stuff. Who puts these agendas together?
Well, look, it's unfortunately, it's not really the opportunity to have that discussion, but you're more than welcome to have that chat with the administration. They'll be happy to talk to you about it. Yeah, if you contact our assessment manager, he'll be happy to discuss it with you, which is Aaron. But I can't really
do that, but it would have been nice knowing, we know that I was the only representative for this subject and it took 10 minutes.
Sure, I understand, but yeah, unfortunately, we're not really in a position we can have that discussion at the moment because we need to move on with our agenda. So I apologise. No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Carmel. All right, members. We now need to move to the other parts of our agenda. Thank you, Jane, for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
Bear with me. Now, we didn't have any applications for the review of assessment manager decisions. There were no panel updates, and that takes us to other business. And the first item we had was the meeting schedule for 2026, because we are almost there already. Any member have any, well, Aaron, do you want to say anything to, no. Any member have any concerns in respect of those dates? Excellent. Right, we do have a recommendation that we continue to meet on the first Tuesday of each month, and with those dates listed somewhere. Yeah, with yes, obviously January being the exception. Someone prepared to move? Graham, thank you. Is there a seconder? Rachel, thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you to the administration for putting that together. And then we have our second other business item, which is the quarterly report. Now, Aaron, do you want to say anything in respect of this to start?
Yeah, look, nothing really to add other than what's in the report. It's just reiterating that we'll keep bringing these quarterly reports to the panel for your information, and that really gives a summary of the activities of the planning authority, essentially the applications received and assessed both by assessment manager and then by the panel, and including the applications under delegation. Still yet to receive any applications for a deemed consent, which is great. So we'd like to keep it that way. Yeah, so you'll be able to see there the list of applications that have been determined under delegation of the panel. Yeah, so, and that was, I think it was 13 in total. Thank you.
Any questions in respect of the quarterly report? No. We have a mover that Jane, thank you, the report be received. Jane's moving. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Graham. Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried unanimously. Again, thank you to the administration for putting that report together. Is there any other business from any panel member? Oh, I'll do it at the end. Yeah. And any other business from the staff? No. We have no confidential reports, and the next meeting, obviously, will be 20th of January, unless we have anything special crop up in the meantime. So, happy to declare the meeting closed at 7:37 p.m. So that will be the official end of